What's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about things I wish I knew 25 years ago. These are lessons that if I had known when I was a child, life would have been a lot easier. But I guess that's part of the journey, right? Probably going to be a two-parter, but I wanted to go over as many of them as I could in the first part, and then I'll probably end up making a second video. But these are all crucially important things that I wish I had known again 25 years ago. And I'm going to start off with the things that adults say about you to you are probably not true. And I'm mainly gearing towards the negative side of things when I say this. And the reason why I'm saying this is because everybody's broken. Nobody's perfect, right? You've been told that your whole lives. Well, nobody's perfect, so you're not supposed to be perfect. Well, that applies to grown-ups too when you're a child. And I think what a lot of kids don't realize is they take what an adult says as gospel, if you will, or any term you want to use that's relative to that definition. Basically, they see an adult and they just assume that because that adult is older than them, wiser than them, have more experience than them, is superior to them in every way possible, that whatever comes out of their mouth, they need to interpret as just the 100% truth, regardless of how accurate it is. Because reality is, like I said, nobody's perfect. Grown-ups are dealing with their own stuff. Me being a grown-up now, I know how stressful grown-up life is in relation to being a kid. And it's hard, you know what I mean? And when people say things, especially out of anger or, having a bad day, or maybe it's a repetitive type thing. Maybe it's something that somebody's saying to you with consistency. Regardless, if it's mean or it's cruel or it's directed at you in an aggressive fashion, it's probably not accurate. It's probably a problem that they have. You know what I mean? When you're 17, the last thing you're thinking about is, the grown-ups insecurity complex that they have and the reason why they're coming down on you for various things. Like, you can't even wrap your head around that type of stuff, right? So I think it's very important to realize that, and again, obviously respect your elders, grown-ups. I mean, at that point in your life, you're doing what you're told, that type of thing. And I think it's good to follow those rules a large percentage of the time. But when you're being treated in a specific way by a grown-up verbally, especially verbally, and it seems like it's consistently anger, or it's consistently demeaning, or it's just a constant attack, the likelihood that it's pretty rare. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'll use a real life example for every single one, is because when I was a kid, I wasn't the best kid in the world. I was getting in trouble a lot, just doing stupid stuff. Didn't really have a lot of direction. I didn't have a father figure. So, when I mess up and parents say some things sometimes, my friends' parents or acquaintances or, relationships that I was in, their parents, I got told a lot of stuff that was pretty hurtful. And at the time, I thought that was literally the definition of me, is I didn't know any better, you know what I mean? So it's hard to be able to distinguish truth from either lies or things that are just said out of anger. So I think that's a very important one to start off with. And I don't think a lot of people really process that, especially at that age, but even when they get older. It's like, man, that stuff that was said about me by such and such, where were they coming from with that? Like, all that stuff was so inaccurate. You know what I mean? So it's just something to touch on. The second one I want to go with is, so there's two ways people are going to leave your life, right? They're going to leave your life voluntarily, or they're going to leave your life involuntarily, meaning they're going to choose to leave, right? Or they're going to be either taken away or forced away, or whatever the case may be. So it's very important to ask yourself as frequently as possible, with the people that you don't want to leave your life, if this person was taken from my life today, Would I regret anything? And if the answer is yes, then you probably need to do a little bit of work in that area. You know what I mean? Maybe an extra I love you, maybe an extra miss you, maybe, anything. Because the reality is, um, life is short, it's finite, and it's also extremely unpredictable. So, as many of you probably know or may not know, when I was 17, my father was murdered. So, that would be an involuntary way, right? And the last conversation I had with him was actually an argument. So, that has left me for the last 25 years asking myself why that was what took place and why that was the last thing that I said to him or why that was the last conversation that I had with him. So it's very important at all times to keep things in perspective when it comes to how quickly your life can change in a very 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 major way. And it's very easy in this day and age with technology and advancements and all that stuff to be complacent and to not really continue to develop the relationships you have with people. You know what I mean? Well, I'll just send them a text real quick, and you just text them, hey, what's going on? Took you all of 7 seconds of effort. Like, is that really like? Are you really putting an effort there? Are you really, trying your best to, maximize your relationship with that person? Probably not. So maybe try to take some things on a daily basis that are low effort as far as relationships are concerned and just try to put in additional effort. And again, this is only going to apply to people that, you want to have in your life for as long as possible. Cultivate those relationships, continue to develop them, because at the end of the day, you don't know how long that person's going to be around, and the best relationships are always the deepest ones, and you're not going to get deep without effort. So yeah, I think that's a good one as well. Next one I'm going to go with is if you're being, this is kind of similar to the first one, but it's from a parental aspect. If you're being treated by your parents every day in a specific way that instinctually feels wrong, it's probably wrong. So what I mean by that is, I grew up in a household, like I said, didn't have my dad when I was 17, but I mean, my mom obviously is still alive. But when I was a kid, she would never publicly admit it, but she's certainly bipolar, and she was very on and off, right? So with me especially, so like one day it's you're the best kid in the entire world, love you. Next day it's get all your stuff out of my house, find somewhere else to live. And when you're growing up in an environment like that, the only environment you know is the one that you're in, right? There's no way for you to know what other types of environments other kids are growing up in because the only environment you have to compare it to is your own. You're not traveling around to other people's houses and spending like enough time with them to really get a gauge on, well, is their situation like way different than mine is? Especially when you're like younger, right? When you don't have your driver's license and you, I mean, what you're born into is what you're born into. So I think it's very difficult sometimes for kids because they assume that the environment that they're in is a good one, and the way they're being brought up is in a positive way, and it allows parents a lot of times to do things wrong, to treat their children poorly, because at the end of the day, the parents have all the leverage, right? I mean, you're not going to move out of your house when you're 13. I mean, you can try, but it's probably not going to go very well. And obviously, parents know that at the time, especially if they're dysfunctional, and especially if they are, have some sort of mental issue or are dealing with some sort of substance abuse thing, or I mean, it could be a multitude of different reasons. So it's very important as a kid, and you don't have to think about it too deeply, but whatever it is, whatever way you're being treated, instinctually, I think that's the best word to use. If it feels wrong, it probably is. And the faster you recognize that, and the faster you're able to associate that with it not being your fault every time something terrible happens, the better off you're going to be. Because what happens is you'll turn into someone like me where no matter what happened, it was always my fault. Even if I didn't do anything wrong, it was my fault. And in situations that I wasn't even involved in, I would take the blame for simply because that was just the environment that I grew up in. Even now, I struggle with dealing with situations that I may or may not even be involved in. I'll say sorry for things that I didn't even do. Um, and I struggle with that immensely. And it's because I didn't know at the time that the way that I was being treated, this hot, cold, love you, get out of my face type of attitude, I didn't realize how dysfunctional and how damaging that was, because I didn't have a lot of exposure to other kids. I think that's very important. And again, I mean, it's not something that you necessarily have to recognize on a super deep level, right? Because you're not really going to be able to dissect that anyway, being so young. But just know in your heart and in your head that if something feels wrong that your parents are doing consistently, it's probably wrong. And the last one I'm going to touch on today is going to be, as far as friend relationships are concerned, it's very important, I think, to give friends the benefit of the doubt initially. But if you're similar to myself and you put a lot of effort into friendships because they're important to you, but that effort's not being reciprocated, it's very important to realize that as early as possible and to not waste any energy on it. Because what I struggled with as a kid was, especially when you're in like that 18 to 24, 25-ish range where like you're partying all the time, or at least I was, you're drinking all the time, you're going out to clubs and bars and doing all this stuff. And like, you think your primary focus is to have as many friends as possible and to know as many people as possible. Like, you think that's cool. And at the time, it feels cool, right? Like you're throwing this house party. It's like, well, Billy only got 35 people at his house party. I got 65. Like, that makes you the cooler person. But what you need to realize is that the amount of people that you know, the amount of acquaintances that you have, is completely irrelevant. And the more people you know, the less deep your relationships are going to be. I mean, that's just math, right? There's only so much time in a day. And if you're not spending a large deal of time with somebody, and you're not cultivating a relationship with them, or you go through long periods of time where you guys just don't speak, like, how deep is that relationship? So I guess don't keep score. Think about it this way, like, everybody talks about, like, well, if I called him at 4 o'clock in the morning to change my tire, he would. And that's cool and all, but guess what? It only takes two people to change the tire. So how many, like, really close friends do you really need? And especially when you look at it from the perception that the more people you think you're close to, the less close you are with those people. I think that helps it make a little bit more sense for everybody. So, but yeah, those are the first couple of ones I wanted to go over. I have a ton more that I'll do in the next part. But I wanted to leave you guys with that, some food for thought, something to hang your hat on, think about a little bit. And again, same thing I leave you with every time. Just remember, the only thing that's preventing you from doing anything is yourself. And the faster you realize that, the better off you guys will be. All right, take care, guys. Peace.